Hello,
Hello,
hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well.
Alhamdulillah.
Like, what do you want to learn today?
So the t-test and
Mm-hmm.
the linear regression bootstrapping.
Mm-hmm. Sorry,
Uh,
bootstrapping? Like, you're talking about like moderation regression, right?
uh, the one we did in
Okay,
in
okay, okay. I think
our
that
project.
was mediation. Let me wait. Let me check. Kindly wait.
Okay.
Mm, yeah, those are mediation. Okay, no worries. Shall I start with our example, like the data set that we have used initially?
Yes.
Okay, great. Kindly wait. Let me open the data set. Okay. On those. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, before starting, let's check what we have done, okay, previously. So
Okay.
suppose we have used the subtle product placement and parasocial interaction and the explicit brand attitude and implicit brand attitude, for example, okay? So there, the subtle product placement was our independent variable and the explicit brand attitude was our dependent variable and the parasocial interaction was the mediator variable, okay?
Okay.
So let's start with this one. For example, here we have all the variables.
Okay.
Now, for doing mediation analysis, you have to go to analyze tab, then regression, and you can see there is like ng-highest process is showing up there. But if you didn't install it at your computer in the SPSS, you have to install it before. Okay, so
Okay.
you can just simply search by highest process in Google. You can find their website and download the software, and it's easy to install. You can just simply double click on it, and it will be installed inside of your SPSS directly. Okay, so once you install it, when you go to analyze and then regression, you can see this option appearing here. Okay,
Okay.
so from there, if you just select it, you can now select the model numbers. Like there are too many different kinds of model, like 92 different types of models. So if you want to understand like what kind of model that you want to use, you can check their PDFs. Like they have a PDF which and tells about like which number model looks like which conceptual diagram. Okay, so
Okay.
in our case, as we are using mediation regression, we can directly use their model 4, And also if you want to like verify and look at the structure of their models, you can get the PDF from their site too. So the PDF is this one, okay? So this is the PDF that they provide, and in that PDF you can see different kinds of models. Like this is model 1, this is for moderation analysis, and this is model 2. It's like 2 moderators, and model 3. You can see different model have different structures, okay? So different conceptual model works differently, number of variables work differently in such case. So the mediation that we are doing is actually this diagram, okay? So you can see we are checking relationship between X and Y, and the mediation impact of the mediator in the relationship between X and Y, okay? So for checking this type of regression, we have to use model 4. And now let's come to SPSS, and you can see we can select it. Now let's select 4. And from this portion, we have to select our dependent, independent, and mediator variable, okay? So our dependent variable was, for example, in explicit attitude, okay? Explicit in the Y, we have to put the dependent in the Y variable, and in the X variable, we will use the independent one, okay? The control and experiment group. And in the mediator, we will use the parasocial interaction, okay?
Okay.
So you can see the 3 variables are selected. So you can see covariates, moderators. So different models actually require different variables to put in those cells, okay? In our case, we need only one mediator, so we use the mediator. If there are multiple mediators, we could use that too, based on our choices. Next thing, we have to select from the options, okay? From the options, we can select the show total effect model. It will actually show you like how the direct and indirect and total effects are um, showing, are those significant or not, okay? So those tests will be done there. And you can still share one more thing, which is standardized effect. Like if you want to look at only the standardized effect instead of the direct effect, like for example, let me show you one exposure. First experiment, second experiment, parasocial interaction. Okay. So here you can see those beta, okay? Those values are actually standardized coefficient, okay? I also have like given footnote over there, as you can see. Standardized regression coefficients are given there, given here, okay? So that actually provide us the standardized value. I'll explain you like what is the necessity of standardized effects nowadays. So next thing, we can just simply run that. No, we don't have to select anything else. We can just simply run it. Press OK. It's showing running metrics, okay? So after it runs, the output will be appeared. And here you can see the entire output of our mediation analysis, and the mediator was parasocial interaction. Independent variable was like group variable, which is control and experiment, and the dependent variable is the explicit attitude, okay? So from there, we can utilize those values, as you can see, those output to prepare our exact table, okay? So in our case, the table looks like this, okay? And there you can see 3 models are actually there. And if you look at the diagram, to be exact, you can see like 3 connections you can notice. One is like X, between X and y. Okay, so if you just let me just show you side by side, you can understand better. So you can see like the subtle product placement, which is our independent variable x, and explicit execute is our dependent variable y. Okay, so
Okay.
there is one model which is showing you direct effect, like the effect between x and y. Okay, like how x is impacting y. Next model is showing us the impact of x on the mediator. So this arrow, can you see my cursor?
Yes.
So this arrow is actually explained by this model. Okay, like how this x is impacting the mediator. The last model is actually showing the impact of three variables like x and m on y. Okay, y is the dependent one, so x variables impact and m variables impact. So you can see all the arrow that you can see over here in this diagram is all are there.
Yeah.
Have you understood it? Like
Yes.
x
But
and y, this line x on m, x and m on y. Yeah,
yeah,
tell me.
it is I think called the A and B and C,
Mm-hmm.
right? A
Right, right.
row and B. So, but in the schedule here, the number is not clear. Can you see the RF and the
Which
letter
one you're
let?
talking about? Those are?
Yes. Which
I
number?
will explain. I'll explain. No, it's like
Okay.
I'm just talking about the overall frame
Yeah.
that we are dealing
Okay.
with. Okay,
Okay.
let's. I'll discuss these outputs. So once we discuss those, those will be clear too. Okay. So
Okay.
this is the actual like the conceptual diagram that we are working on. Okay. Next thing, let's talk about the outputs, which is like the regression outputs in between. Okay, so
Okay.
this is one regression model, that is one regression model, and that is like there are a total of 3 regression models, as you can see. So the first regression model actually like this model is our second one, which is this one. Okay, so that
Okay.
model is from this output you can get these values. So before explaining this, let me show you what we have right now inside of it. Here you can see the value of r, r square, m, s, e, f, degrees of freedom, p value. And again, in the model part, this is the model summary. So actually model summary means if you don't have any other thing, only those two variable inside a model, what will be the entire model looks like. Okay, like how much variation it will explain, overall model will be significant or not. This type of discussion can be done based on the model summary. Okay, and if you want to deep dive into it, you have to talk about this model portion. Okay, like this model group. Okay, you can see my cursor, right?
Yes.
So this portion is actually the part where you talk about individual thing, but this model summary is the part where you talk about the entire model. Okay,
Okay.
and when I say entire model, I mean only this model. Okay, and
Okay.
next, if you see this one, you can like similarly judge it, like this thing that it will talk about the entire model, those values will talk about individual effect. Okay, like you can
Okay.
see for this one. So now if we talk about the values, like the r square value is actually 0.0854. Okay, so that 0.0854, can you see that value?
Yes.
0.0854.
Yeah.
So this value actually tells tell us that the subtle product placement explains 8.54%. Like you have to convert this value into percentage if you want to explain. So
Okay.
this value is telling us that that subtle product placement explains 8.54% variation of parasocial interaction. Okay, so if you
Okay.
consider as a dependent, and this is an independent variable. This independent variable actually explains 8.54% variation of parasocial interaction. Is it clear to you?
Yeah.
Okay. And next important value, which is f. That f value actually tells us that how the model is significant or not. For example, that p value that you are seeing, this is actually judging the f statistic and tells us that the f statistic is statistically significant because the p-value is less than 0.05. Can you see that the p-value
Yeah.
is actually less than 0.05? And
Yeah.
it is quite simple in one sense, like as the independent variable number is 1, like in our this model there are only one independent variable, right? Like subtle
Yeah.
product placement is only one independent, and the dependent variable is parasocial interaction. In such case, actually that p-value and the coefficient p-value becomes similar. Okay, so you can see that those p-values are exactly similar to each other. The difference will appear when we do multiple linear regression like this one. Okay, there you can see multiple independent variables, right? So in such case, the p-value of f statistics is different from the p-value of individual variable, as there are multiple individual variables. You understood it,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So the thing here is, from the f statistics you can get a glimpse like overall model is significant or not. Okay, so from this value, as this value is big enough, like you don't have to make your decision based on that, because our entire decision is made on those coefficients. Okay, like those stars. If it is significant, if it is not significant, we talk about this. That's why in the discussion you can see we didn't discuss the f statistics in any place. It's just for showing up that your overall model is somehow significant, and we are like good to go with the coefficient discussion, where we discuss all the coefficients like this one, this one, this one. Okay, so
Okay.
actually this f statistics value is telling us like how our overall model is significant or not. So in such case we can see that our overall model is significant. Next thing that we have to discuss, this is the most crucial one, is the beta and t value. Okay, so beta actually is standardized coefficient, and once if you see like someone write b over here, that tells you that this is not n standardized, this is unstandardized coefficient. Okay, if someone write b, that means it's unstandardized coefficient. If someone write beta, it's like a Greek alphabet. Beta is in actually a Greek alphabet. So if someone write beta, that means it's an standardized coefficient. So what is the difference between standardized and unstandardized? So you can see that value 0.4511, this is actually an unstandardized value, and the value 5837 is the standardized value like we have used. Okay.
Okay.
So what is the difference? Difference is actually standardized coefficient deals with the constant by itself. Okay, so the constant effect, can you see that the constant effect like 1.9986, that
Yeah.
effect is like already considered while the standardized coefficient is used. So when you just put the standardized coefficient in some table, you don't have to explain the constant effect separately. Okay, because it's already being standardized. That is why generally for this type of like in multiple models, when we compare or like when we deal with multiple models side by side, we generally use standardized regression coefficient instead of like you can say unstandardized regression coefficient. Is it clear to you?
Okay. Yes.
Okay,
So
so
are we recording this video?
yeah,
So
and this session will be recorded, and in 30 days you can download it. Okay, so it's
okay.
a paid session, like I already told you, I guess, right? So
Okay.
the session recording will be provided to you, and you can download it anytime in between 30 days. Okay, I would request you to download it once I send you the link, and
Okay.
after you create the offer, we can end the entire thing, and the
Okay.
offer will be created based on the number of minutes we talk. Okay,
Okay.
So this is the significance, like this is the coefficient that we have talking about. It is standardized coefficient because you can see there is no intercept given. Can you see that? Like only the independent variable is talked about here. If we add intercept, then we can assume like there is unstandardized thing because intercept also given, right? So it is clear that we are talking about standardized coefficient. Next, we have to talk about the significance of that coefficient. Like we have seen, like this is the impact of that variable on parasocial interaction, but is the impact significant or not? Okay, so that is what you can understand from the t value and the p value. So p value is actually the probability and redirected from the t statistic. So that is why the t statistics is the prior one, like the f statistics we have given here. Similarly, the t statistic will also have to be given here, and then we will say that t statistic is significant or not based on the p value. Okay, so from the p value, as you can see, it is less than 0.05. So there are, like, you can classify it in 3 scales. Okay, if it is less than 0.05 only, then 1 star. If it is less than 0.01, which is far smaller than 0.05, then it will be 2 star. And if it is less than 0.001, which is too small, then you can use 3 star. So it's like you're talking about the level of significance, like how significant it is. And if there is
Yeah.
no star, that means there is no significant effect. Okay, so
Yeah.
in this case, you can see the p-value is actually 0.001, which is less than 0.01, right? So that is why the, like, there are 2 star given, and which means that subtle product placement have a significant impact on the parasocial interaction. Okay, in our mediator, like X has a significant impact on the mediator.
Yeah.
Next model is talking about like the group and parasocial interaction effect on the explicit attitude. So group, which is this one, and the parasocial interaction effect on the explicit attitude. And similarly, we will talk about R square and F statistics, and then we will discuss those. Okay, so from the R
Okay.
square, you can see parasocial interaction and subtle product placement explains 7.91% variation of explicit attitude. Okay, so those
Okay.
two variable together explain 7.91% variation of explicit attitude. Next thing, we don't have to talk about F statistics, like it's like overall summary thing. This is the crucial one, and if like your main intention is to check the moderation and mediation effect, those are not even needed. Like you can just simply rely on those values. It will like give you all the information that you need regarding the mediation analysis. Okay, so
Yeah.
now you can see those effect like parasocial interaction and subtle product placement have no significant effect on explicit attitude. Can you say that, see that?
Yes.
Like those two values don't have any significant impact on explicit attitude. Next model is actually the real independent and dependent variable, right? So that independent was the group variable, and the dependent was the explicit. Okay,
Yeah.
next thing you can see like this one. So this is actually the first model should be there, and the format they give us, it actually like alters the whole scene. They just give us the mediation model, then the total, like both variable content model, and then the total model. So actually the total model should be appeared first, so that a user or the reader of the analysis, they can directly understand, is there any significant effect directly or not, right? So from this variable, the group and the dependent variable, we can understand 4.95% variation can be explained by this group variable of the explicit attitude. Have you understood it? Like
Yes.
4.94% variation. And also there is a significant positive impact of group variable on the explicit attitude. But one more thing, if you just look at this model, and that model, you can see like the percentage of variation that explains by the independent variable is increases. Have you seen it? Like previously it was 4.95%, but it almost being like double, like 7.91. Like it's 8% variation. Previously it was like 5, now it's 8% variation explains, right? So the number of like the variation is actually will be increased when you add the variables together. Like multiple variables will explain more variation, and it's expected in like we can expect it beforehand. And now if you see, like if we don't add the mediator, we only talk about like x on y, the variable was significant, right? Like x has a significant impact on the y variable. Once
Yeah.
we add the mediator, as the independent variable has a significant relationship with m, can you see that? Like independent
Yes.
variable has a
So
significant relationship with n,
yeah.
and after running the entire model, which is x and m on y, which is this one, it
Yeah.
actually becomes insignificant, which means the alter, like this situation is completely altered by the mediator. Okay, so
Okay.
actually like without mediator it was significant, but once the mediator is added, the entire model become insignificant. Like
Okay.
entire model, by saying entire model I mean like the effect of independent variable become insignificant. Have you noticed it?
Yes.
So this actually, this mediation is like, you can see, you can say that like it's a complete mediation in a sense. Like previously it was completely significant, now it becomes completely insignificant due to the presence of mediator. Is it clear
Yeah.
to you?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
this thing is actually the regression based thing, and like the regression models, different models are telling us that, and the whole conversation like is the summary thing is the written one. Okay, so you can
Yeah.
definitely, you have this, so you can read it. Next thing is the bootstrap thing. Okay, so bootstrap thing actually directly measure the effect, like the total effect, for example, x on y. Okay, like what is the total effect of x on y based on like randomly generated sample from our data set. Okay, so let me show you one more thing. So for example, when we go to perform the uh, mediation analysis, you can see there's in the bottom the number of bootstrap samples are given. Can you see that? Like 5,000.
Yeah.
So this sample means like if you take sample from your data set, the actual data set that we are using, if you take sample, for example, if you take 30 samples out of 50, for example, so each time you select different kinds of sample, different values will be generated from the model, right? So that bootstrap actually resample each time, like too many samples are done inside of it, and then it generates the effect each time. Okay, and then calculated, then they calculate the total direct and indirect effect based on the bootstrapping calculation. Okay, so that
Okay.
is why this thing is like gives you more confidence to your previous decision that you have made based on those three models. Okay, so that thing is actually generates this type of information, like the entire table, like this table I'm talking about, is created based on this part. Okay, like this only section where the total effect of x on y, direct effect of x on y, indirect effect of x on y. Okay, so those things are utilized here for this table. So here you can see the effect column, the lower confidence interval, the upper confidence interval, the relative effect value. So relative effect value is actually the thing that we have to calculate manually, because SPSS don't give us the relative effect. they just give us the total direct and indirect effect. So actually the total of like direct and indirect effect is the total effect. If you just see those values, you can directly understand. Like if you just like write 0.2878 plus 0.80889, it will be 0.3767. So they, by doing the bootstrapping, they directly classify the total effect into direct and indirect effect. Okay, so
Okay.
now what we have to understand, like we have to understand, is that total effect significant, is that direct effect significant, is that indirect effect significant or not. Okay, and after we explain that, we will talk about like what percent of variation by the mediator is explaining the, like what percent of variation is explaining by the mediator. Okay, so you can say it's not like variation, you will say like what percent of effect. Okay, like you already have seen the total effect is this one and direct is this one. So indirect one will be one of your most crucial one, like how the mediator is explaining the effect of your total, like x on y. Okay, so you can see in our case the indirect effect is explaining 23.6% variation, and which is quite significant. Okay, like among like total variation of x on y, indirect effect is explaining like 23.6%. Okay, so among total it's quite explainable, and they are showing like a complete effect. And based on this bootstrapping thing, you can directly make your decision, is the total effect significant, is the direct effect significant, is the indirect effect significant. How will say that? Like if your lower interval and the upper level confidence interval contains 0 or not. Okay, like here you can see that if the lower value is this, the upper value is this, there is no 0 in between this range, right? Like this is already started from the like above the 0. So this is already is greater than 0. So if you create a range from this one to that one, there is no 0 inside of it. Is it clear?
Yes.
Now, if you talk about this one, this is already in minus and this is already in plus. So definitely there will be 0 appeared when you create a range between those. Is it clear?
Yes.
So ultimately what we can understand from here, as this value don't contain, like doesn't contain 0 inside of it, we can say this total effect, what we are talking about, that is statistically significant at 0.05 level of significance, because those lower and upper confidence interval are showing us like 95% confidence interval. Okay, so you can see the level of confidence for all confidence interval is in output is 95. Can you see that? So actually this thing is telling us like the total effect is statistically significant, and this thing is also checked if you just look at this one. Okay, so this one is also was talking about the total effect, and we have seen it that it is significant, right? So like we have multiple evidence now that our total effect is significant, which is x on y. The effect of x on y is statistically significant. Next, the direct effect comes into account. The direct effect is actually when you add the mediator, what is the effect of x on y? So as you can understand, like the direct effect is actually the third model, right? Like this one. There, when you add the mediator, what was the effect of independent on the dependent variable? And from there, we also have seen it is insignificant, right? Like when the mediator is present, the effect of independent on dependent was insignificant. Sorry. And now, if you just look at direct effect, the lower and upper confidence interval actually contains 0 in this range, and it tells us that direct effect is insignificant. Okay, and if we go to indirect effect, that actually tells us like our mediator variable, which is the parasocial interaction, is it showing any significant impact to the total effect, like the total effect x on y is there any significant effect of the mediator or not? Okay, so there you can see this range doesn't contain 0 like the total effect one, right? So
Yeah.
as this range doesn't contain 0, we will say it is significant. Is it clear?
Yeah.
So now you can make your decision, like your indirect effect is giving you like significant indirect effect on the relationship between independent and dependent variable, and this effect is actually you can say a complete effect, okay, complete mediation effect, because in the presence of mediator, it's completely altering the total effect. Okay, so previously the total effect was completely significant, but in the presence of mediator, it becomes completely insignificant. And the vice versa is also true. If the presence of mediator makes an insignificant relationship to a significant relationship. For example, if X and Y are insignificantly related, and in the presence of mediator, it becomes completely significant, then it will also be a complete mediation, one kind of. Okay,
Yeah.
is it clear to you?
Yes.
Okay, do you have any question regarding mediation and like the whole process of mediation
So
analysis that we perform?
one
Sure,
still
ask me.
we have this line. Yes. Can you scroll down a little bit to see the schedule? Yeah, we see. Yeah, up again. No, the upper schedule. Okay, let's see this schedule. Choose one schedule.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah, show me the upper schedule. It doesn't appear fully. Yeah, okay. You see, this we have in the T and beta, we have lower at the bottom. We have 2-digit and 2-digit. So these digits belong to which?
You're talking about these values?
No, up in the schedule. Yes, this value and the lower. Yeah, this one and this one. Belong to which one? Also in the T.
You can see that value over there. Like
yeah,
this one is that one, and this value of parasocial interaction is given there. Okay.
Okay.
And also the T. You can see the T value is given there.
Okay.
And this T value. I think there's.
Yeah.
Oh, this T value is given there. Okay, right.
So okay, the down schedule, the table, yeah, this table. We have the total effect is X and Y, right? The direct
X
effect,
on Y, right?
the direct effect is X on M.
No, direct effect is a X on Y, but in the presence of M.
Okay. And the indirect effect is what?
Indirect effect is the effect of M on the relationship between X and Y. So you can say that what happens to the relationship of X and Y when the mediator is present. Okay, so indirect effect is actually used here, like the bootstrapping is actually used here to figure out the actual value of indirect effect. Okay,
yeah. So why don't we call the direct effect the total effect? Because it is total.
Because direct effect is not the total. It's like direct effect when the mediator is present. Once you say total effect, it means like there is no mediator comparison is needed. Okay, like if there was no mediator, you run a simple linear regression which is X on Y, right? So that is the total effect. Now
Okay.
the mediator is explaining some variation of X on Y when the mediator is present.
Okay. Yeah, now it is clear. The direct effect is the effect of the mediator present
Right.
of X on Y. The indirect is the path from X M to Y.
Right. Indirect is the hidden effect that is explained by the mediator. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, this is the question.
Okay. So the mediation is done. Next thing that you wanted to learn is the t-test, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just find out what was the task of t-test. Explicit. Okay. Okay, let's open the data set. Let me just close it. So this is for explicit attitude and the first experiment. Okay, let's open the data set for first experiment, which is this one. Okay. Now you can see the explicit attitude variable is there and the grouping variable is there. Okay. So the t-test, what happens in the t-test? Let me explain. So the t-test actually check difference between two categories. Okay. So in our case, those two categories are our control and experimental group. And the difference of the variable will be calculated is the explicit attitude. So if I simplify the sentence, it will check like, is the average explicit attitude is different between control and experimental group. Let me tell this to you again. Is the average explicit attitude different between control and experimental group? Is my question clear?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah.
this is the research question that you will answer when you do the t-test based on these two, like those two variables. Okay. Yeah. What you're saying?
Yeah, continue. Yeah.
Okay, great. So before performing t-test, you can like recheck your variables, like are those properly formatted or not. Like in our case, I have coded the experimental group as 1 and control as 0. So by default, while doing the t-test, SPSS will understand like experimental is our prior variable and it will take difference between experimental minus control. Okay. So that we can understand like, is there any significant impact of experimental, or you can say significant difference between experimental and control. Vice versa is also correct. It's not like incorrect, but the ideal way is like you are checking difference between experimental minus control, right? Because you want to explore the impact of experimental, not like the impact of control, right? So next thing that we have to do is go to analyze, then we can compare means. Okay, then we can select what kind of t-test that we need. So in our case, that control and experimental group those two groups are independent of each other, right? So
Yeah.
some of them are experimental, some of them are control. Those are not like paired thing. Like for example, instead of this type of column, if you had two column, one is like experimental column, another is like control column. So in that case, those were in the pairs, right? Like experiment pair with control. But in our case, as those are in different rows, we can directly understand like those two are independent groups, right?
Yeah.
Next thing, we have to select independent sample t-test, as those are independent groups. So once we select independent sample t-test, we can select our grouping variable, like this one, control or experiment, to the grouping variable. And we can also define from there, like what are the values. So in our case, one value is 1, another value is 0, right? So next thing, like this is necessary, defining group is necessary when you have like multiple categories in the variable. For example, if there were 3 categories instead of 2, like in our case we have 2 categories, experimental and control. If there
Yeah.
were 3 or 4 categories, you have to select 2 from them, because independent sample t-test actually works for 2 categories only. Okay, so as you can see, we have 2 categories, we don't even have to think about it. Next thing is the test variable, which is explicit attitude. Okay, yeah, explicit attitude is our text variable. And so you can see we have put our grouping variable over there, and the test variable, which is the continuous variable over there. Okay, and
Okay.
we don't have to do anything else. We can just simply go to options and check everything. Okay, those are okay. Generally there is nothing else to select. You can just simply press okay. Okay, so as you can see, like all the tests are done and the analysis result is giving here. Okay,
Yeah.
so from this table, you can, like, this table is actually this one. So let me explain this. You can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So first table is actually showing you the descriptive statistics part. So the descriptive statistics tells you about like what is the descriptive statistic of explicit attitude for different groups, for the experimental one and for the control one. So directly from this descriptive statistics, you can have an idea about what you are getting on the next while doing the test, right? So it's not like an exact idea, but it will give you a glitch, or you can say a hint, like what will be the output. Like for example, if you just look at the experimental group and the control group's average explicit attitude, you can see the experimental one is 2.61. Can you see that?
Mhm.
And the control is 2.68. So that values are not much different from each other. Like you can see the difference is too small, okay,
Yeah.
based on the number of observations and we talk. So actually that thing is telling you that, like, generally it not seems like it is different from each other, but you can validate the thing using the independent sample t-test. That is our goal. Like, is there any significant difference or not? So when you talk about significance, you have to do some kind of test, otherwise you can't say that, right? So
Okay.
the independent sample t-test, like you can split the whole independent sample t-test in 2 parts. First part is like an assumption testing thing. The Leibniz test is actually test some assumption of independent sample t-test, and the second part is actual independent sample t-test. So you can say that the Leibniz test is a preliminary test before you perform the exact independent sample t-test. Okay, so
Okay.
the Leibniz test is used to check an assumption. The assumption is actually when you want to perform independent sample t-test, those two groups variance have to be similar. That is one of the assumption of independent sample t-test. if those are not similar to each other, like it's not like it have to be exactly similar, those have to be significantly similar to each other. Okay, so if those are similar, definitely we can go to perform t-test, that's not a problem. If those are not similar, that is not actually a t-test, it's actually a Welk t-test. Like it's not directly only t-test, it is a Welk t-test. And Welk t-test is like a semi-parametric test, it's not like a parametric one. It's like you can say little bit adjustment there to make it perfect. So that is why we have to check the variance equality at the beginning. So the test is simple. You can see that like 0.249, the p-value, actually sig value is the p-value. Okay, so that 0.249 is greater than 0.05, which tells us that equal variance not assumed is false. Equal variance assumed is true. Okay, so just remember this thing. Like if the value is less than 0.05, then you can say equal variance not assumed. If the value greater than 0.05, like our case, we will say equal variance assumed. Okay, here you can see the value is 0.249, which is greater than 0.05, and it shows you that equal variance is assumed. Okay, now we will only consider that top line. We don't have to think about the bottom line, because the bottom line is actually talks about equal variance not assumed case. And in our case, the equal variance is assumed, as we have already seen from the p-value of f statistic, and equal variance is assumed because it is greater than 0.05. Okay, so we can now directly concentrate on the first line, and there we will prioritize two-sided p-value, for example. Okay, so that we can understand like if there is any difference or not. Okay, one-sided t-test, one-sided p-value and two-sided p-value are a little bit different, but those are telling you like two different things, and also there is similarities. For example, two-sided p-value tells you are those unequal of each other. Okay, so for example, average explicit attitude of experimental group not equal to average explicit attitude of control group. It doesn't check if it is greater or not, it just check it is unequal or not. For example, it can be greater, it can be lower. Okay, so that is why two-sided test will tell you like if there is any significant difference or not accurately, it is greater difference, or like if it is a positive difference or if it is a negative difference. It's not like that, it will just simply tell you it is significant or not. Okay, so from the p-value you can see like it is 0.591, and if the p-value is greater than 0.05, we can say there is no significant difference. Okay, if the p-value is greater than 0.05, as we can see the value is greater than 0.05, we will say there is no significant difference between explicit attitude of experimental and control group, and the exact mean difference will be shown over there. As you can see, the mean difference is minus 0.07435. Also, you can calculate this value from those mean value. Okay, like 2.6102 minus 2.6845 will be minus 0.07435. Okay, so this p-value will tell you that this difference that you can look at, the exact difference is statistically significant or not. So actually the p-value is saying that like this difference is not a significant one, it is a like insignificant difference. Okay,
yeah, so the p-value is different from the mean. Is that the p-value measure probability?
P-value measures the probability of accuracy, like how accurately you can tell this is significant or not. Okay, and this mean difference is actually a real life mean difference. Like if you take average of explicit attitude for experimental group separately, average for control group separately, and then take difference between those two groups, this is the mean difference. But the p-value will like probabilistically measure, like statistically measure is that effect significant, or is that difference significant or not? Okay,
Mm.
is it clear?
So we depend only on p-value, right?
Right. Like you already have seen, like when we do the regression also, like the mediation regression that we have just seen, there also the p-value was the most important one, right? Like it will tell you which variable is significant, which variable is not significant. So when you are demanding some proof, like based on your data set for certain as hypothesis, you have to use the p-value and the test statistic like that. Otherwise it won't be an appropriate one. Like it will be just a simply based on sample thing. It's not like represent the population. For example, if you just understand, you have some experimental observation, you have some control observations, right? So if someone else execute the same research based on like higher number of observation, and for example, instead of 108 experimental groups observations, they selected suppose 400 or 500 observation, right? They can do
Yeah.
that, isn't it correct? So
Mm.
they will definitely get some different average value of explicit attitude. Is it correct?
Yeah.
Because it's not necessarily that your value will be similar to his value, like because there are different persons perception given there. Like you have just talked about, for example, 100 peoples, and he talked about like around 400 or 600 people, so their attitude will be different, and it can be assumed like definitely there will be some difference. But that difference, once you talk about like this much observation compared to yours, you will still can say that is there any significant difference or not. When you talk about the significance, that the actual scale up thing actually can be easy to handle. Okay, like you don't have to collect like thousands of observation. Your 100 observation also gives you an you can say enough evidence to the fact like is there any significant difference or not. So this significance thing comes into account when you talk about sample, right? Your data is actually a sample. You are not talking about like entire population in the country. You are just talking about some people who
Yeah.
participated in this survey. Okay, so
Okay.
this some people is like an actual representation of your entire population, like all the peoples. Okay, that is
Okay.
why that tests are needed. The test actually gives us the probability, like those are tends to be different or those are not tends to be different, and it like a reflection of the actual population. Okay,
Okay.
is it clear to you?
Yes, clear.
Okay, do you need anything else?
No, I think it's clear now.
Okay, so after we end the session, I'll like I didn't discuss the pricing to you yet, right?
Okay.
Or did I tell you the pricings?
No, you didn't discuss, but yeah, I'm
Okay,
ready. Yeah,
sorry.
I'm ready to, if you want to
So,
discuss.
like I charge 45 USD per hour if you see my gigs, but as we already have worked on those before, and like we are working like this is our third time, right?
Yeah.
So I can charge you like 40. Okay, like instead of 45 I can charge you 40. Is that okay for you per hour?
Yeah. Yeah, very, very nice.
Okay,
Actually, you
so
deserve more, brother.
mhm.
I appreciate your time.
You're
And also,
welcome,
yes,
brother.
yesterday I was waiting you there, but the refresh, if you send
Like
me a,
you can also see it is like already 8:47. Like yesterday when you messaged me, I
yeah,
already
yeah,
like go to
I,
sleep. Then
yeah,
that is why I couldn't talk to you.
yeah.
And no, it's like anytime if you need any session or thing, you can just let me know, and you can just it will be better
So,
if you just give me your time, like and tell me like I am available from this time to that time. so that I can just easily pick a specific time zone, like time period from your schedules. So it will be easier for me. Like I have
Okay.
some other meetings to do with like other clients, like other sessions,
Yeah.
that the thing.
So what is your
Mhm.
major? You study statistics.
Yeah, like I have graduated from statistics. That was my first major, and my second major was computer science. Like I have graduated from two disciplines.
Okay, so you work with the PhD project.
Sorry?
You work with the research project, like
Yeah, like I generally work with research project and
publication.
not for publication, but for the organizations. Like I directly don't work for publication purposes. Like if people utilize my work for the publication, it's their own choice. But generally, I don't create like publication oriented papers. Okay.
Okay,
It's like forbidden in Fiverr because the students or whatever person they do publication, they should do that them own. Like for example, you learn how to do t-test or how to do mediation analysis, and from now on you can perform it by your own. Okay, so after
yeah,
you learn that, you will perform it in your project, for example, and create a report or like publish it. So it's your own project. It's not like my own. Like I'm just a
yeah,
teacher to you. I'm teaching that, and how you will gonna utilize it, it's all based on your choice. So that is legal. Like the session thing is legal, but when someone asks for like I need a publication paper or something else, that is not legal because I am directly doing the work on behalf of him, where he will utilize his name for publication or for the academic thing. Those are illegal to do.
yeah, yeah.
Is it
But
clear to you?
yeah, but also he can
Mhm.
add your name in the publication and
It's
specify
not like that. The
your
name is
role.
not the prime
Yeah,
thing. Like it's like
yeah,
the
I
policy, to
understand.
be honest.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, but I mean, like ethically,
Mhm.
he can specify that you
Yeah,
participate in this.
definitely. Like that's not ethical concern, to be honest. When you do some
Mm,
publication and you add someone's name, like this person like helped me for the analysis or something else. Yeah,
yeah,
those are ethical, definitely. But the thing here is actually the whole process. Okay, so like there are some academic guidelines and standard. You can't outsource your thing from the Fiverr or like Upwork, so those standards are actually impacting the whole process.
okay, yeah, I understand.
Okay, brother, then we can conclude it now, right?
Yeah,
So after ending this call, you can cut the call too. After ending this call, I'll create the offer based on minutes we talk, and um, I'll send you the recordings after some, like it will take some minutes to upload the entire recording, and then I'll send you the link, okay?
okay.
Have a nice
Uh,
day.
you too. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.